Hello YouTube. After a long leave of absence, I guess you could call it, I am back with some Rome Total War footage. This is myself versus, you can see his name there. It's a little bit crude, but oh well. Guess he can choose whatever he wants for his name. He was a nice opponent, and it was fun to play against him. I'm actually playing with the Pre-Marian Roman army, and some people might complain that I'm using archers instead of velites, or some people like to call them velites. I'm not using them just because I was worried about him having forest or warbands, and I wanted something a little bit better than velites to be absorbing the fire from his forest or warbands. So my opponent gets pretty aggressive and charges in after my archers and leaves his noble cavalry isolated. And yes, Roman cavalry is much weaker than barbarian noble cavalry, but surrounded, barbarians do not tend to have very good morale. They don't tend to have good morale when they're not surrounded. In any case, I use overwhelming numbers to knock out one of his units of barbarian noble cavalry. And again, my archers were just throwaway units. Let's take a look at my opponent's army. He has more men cresting the hill in the back. He's got 3 units of warband right there. Spread in loose formation, same thing on the other flank. The meat of his army is, I want to say 6 units of chosen swordsmen with good upgrades backed by druids for morale boosting support. I was going to use my archers to slaughter his druids, but he made the smart move of rushing me so that my pillar damage would be minimized. But he also rushed his druids in, which I wouldn't have done. I would have left them out of the fight to support his units from there. So let's take a look up close. Now, chosen swordsmen would probably be wasting histati, and I knew that I would be up against chosen swordsmen, and so I made sure to upgrade my histati with an experience chevron. This way they would stand their ground a little bit longer. And then my Principes threw their pilla, and they're now charging in to support the histati. My opponent had some barbarian cavalry that he rushed in for some hammer and anvil work, and it was quite effective. He routed one of my unit of histati. And in the back, he's trying to get more of his cavalry into play, but I'm warding them off with my triarii. And you can see that after being worn down against my histati, hit by the pila of my Principes, his chosen swordsmen are starting to feel the effects, and so they are pretty beat up. And they're also going to be getting tired from having to burn through my histati to get to my Principes, but his men still fight really well. You just have to understand that chosen swordsmen are far and away better units than a lot of the Pre-Marian troops. Alright, here he's doing some more hammer and anvil work, and this is going to be pretty bad for me. I'm going to end up losing a unit of histati, but the rest of my men hold their ground because that was just a charge by light cav. And then I do some of my own rear charges on his barbarian forces, and that turns out to rout his entire left flank. That's the problem when using a barbarian faction, is generally when you get some of them routing, it kind of causes a chain rout, even amongst quality units, and that's the reason why I would have held my druids in reserve. That way their morale boosting would have continued rather than them getting beat up in the fight. But I'm not going to say that it's easy to avoid being destroyed by Rome when you're playing as the barbarians, because I played the same opponent afterwards. I played as Spain against his Pre-Marian army, and he gave me a good sound thrashing. And it's basically just due to that you have to micromanage your troops extremely well as a barbarian faction, even against Pre-Marian Rome, or else your men are going to chain rout. And here you can see the last of his mainline units routing off the field. So it was a relatively short fight. Once it got started, I fast forwarded me marching up in the beginning, and then here I have to chase off some of his troops, but I'm not going to record that. So good game to my opponent. Hope you enjoyed it. I was glad he played me. And like I said, don't be thinking that I was a lot better than him or something, because I played him shortly after this, Spain versus his Pre-Marian Scipii army, and he absolutely thrashed me. So anyway, good game to my opponent on both games. It was fun. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me watch the brave last stand, actually, of his last unit of chosen swordsmen. I was pretty sure that I could scare them off with my cavalry, and so I charged in all my cavalry. But his men held their ground. Surprisingly, they were in loose formation too. I expected that to not really work to their favor. But of course, all my Roman cavalry is really light cavalry, so they're not going to fare all that well. And even my general rout. So I have a pretty pansy general. They only managed to kill just a couple of chosen swordsmen, and they absolutely wasted my horsemen. So anyway, his chosen swordsmen here are going to enjoy a small momentary victory before the remains of my infantry arrive. So let's watch that. So I move my archers up and I start to pepper his men. And he's going to put his men in war cry to maximize their effectiveness and then charge. So here comes the brave last stand of his chosen swordsman against the remains of my Pre-Marian army, who's also going to charge in. And here is Hell's Fury unleashed between the two armies. These men fighting for their lives and my men fighting for victory. And there comes the regrouped remnants of my cavalry to finish off the fight. So my cavalry came back and regained their lost pride there. Alright, hope you enjoyed that. You can see my name in this battle and then my opponent there. Good game to him, enjoyed the two games, and had fun.